Shalom, guys. Welcome back to another episode here at YASHAV Ministries with Casa de Israel Yara. Thank you again for being there. Like I always said, if you like the content that we have on our channel, like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put on the comment section down below. So this week we close out the book of Leviticus or Vayikra. It is in Leviticus chapter 26 and 27. The closeout to an amazing book. We learn Adonai's heart, his structure when it comes to his rituals, his holy days, his appointed times, Moedim. And now, after all the various commandments that we have learned from, and the rituals, and how to approach, how do we purify ourselves, how do we maintain ourselves holy, how do we consecrate ourselves for him, and how he expects us to do so. Now we enter into the last part of this book where it starts talking about the blessings and curses. And so we're going to jump directly into PowerPoint. We'll read some of the portion and then we'll read from Jacob Milgram. And so mainly the information that I'm going to be using is from Jacob Milgram, Leviticus, great commentary. Also from the JPS Torah commentary, Leviticus. And so this is the main resources that I'm going to be using, just so y'all know. Before we get started, let's do a Torah blessing. Baruch Adonai HaEvorah, Baruch Adonai HaEvorah, Le'olam Ba'eh, Baruch Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch Adonai, noten HaTorah. Bless Adonai who is blessed. Bless Adonai who is blessed now and forever. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has chosen us from among the peoples and has given us the Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives the Torah. Amen. So, Torah portion, Bechukotai. Okay? Now, Torah portion, Bechukotai, starts in Leviticus chapter 26, verse 3 to chapter 27, verse 34. And the Haftarah portion of the prophets is Jeremiah chapter 16, verses 19 through 17. And the Brit Hadashah, or the New Testament portion, will be Matthew chapter 22, verse 1 through 14. Torah portion, Bechukotai, holiness code, right? The epilogue, or the end of the book, or the end of the holiness code, is patterned after other biblical blessings and curses and other similar ancient Near Eastern compositions. Its position is the key to its function in the text. It comes directly after a collection of laws and commandments. All three Torah collections of laws are followed by admonitions, which are rebukes, and the same is true in the rest of the ancient Near Eastern literature generally. The Code of Hammurabi concludes with an execration, which are denouncements, and curses follow the provision of boundary stones and royal decrees. Also in the Egyptian execration texts are so-called because they contain curses. Execrations were pronounced over towns, provinces that failed to pay tribute to pharaohs or were disloyal in other ways, and one cannot be punished without first being admonished or rebuked. Follow my decrees. The blessings and curses conclude the treaty between God as the superior party, or the suzerain, which is something that we see in Deuteronomy mainly, that structure of the book. And Israel is recorded in Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy, chapter 27, chapter 27 and chapter 28. In ancient Near East, blessings and curses, or curses and blessings, could be appended to a law collection in order to encourage obedience. They were also among the components of treaty formulations, such as those given by the Hittite emperors of the second millennium BCE to other rulers subordinate to them. Following are the most prominent components, not all of which were present in every treaty. Introduction of the speaker, historical prologue, stipulation, statement concerning the document, divine witnesses, and curses and blessings. This is a structure, which is introduction of the speaker, historical prologue, right? So blessings and curses usually with an emphasis on curses and severity, combined to form a powerful tool of persuasion that encouraged the faithfulness and discouraged the disloyal non-compliance with treaty stipulations by placing positive versus negative results in vivid contrast. An Egyptian hymn of praise to the god Amun-Re encapsulates this dynamic, which says, "Who extend his arms to the one who loves, while his enemies fall to the flame." Now, Bechukotai is powered by the word hukah or hok, that which is established or defined. Okay? The well-being and peace and prosperity is short all the blessings an individual and nation seek to secure from the divine powers are contingent on obedience to laws, treaties, oaths, and royal edicts. Divine wrath is the misfortune of the disobedient. Our epilogue, or the end, is present particular priestly notions of the meaning of the covenant relationship between God and Israel. The most awful punishment threatened for violation of the covenant is exile, because it brings with it the danger of extinction in hostile land. So the opening is going to be very direct to blessings, and God says, Bechukotai, right? If you keep my statutes, my decrees, and my commands, right, you will be prosperous. And he opens this way, and then as the chapter goes on, he then says, but if you don't, this is what comes about. Now, remember, Israel right now is being open to the possibility of not only being holy, pure, and God, as we will read, promises to be amongst the people if they obey. So Israel has an opportunity right now in this purest form to manifest God's presence on earth, just like it was in the beginning in the Garden of Eden. So our previous Torah portion, which was Parashat Bechar, ended with the following statement: "You shall guard my Shabbat and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord." So last week we spoke about how the Shemitah year and the Yovel, the year of Jubilee, is connected to the relationship we have with the land, with our fellow brothers, how we let the land rest, how we free our brothers, and how we bring this balance to humanity and the community. That way it's not overpowered like other nations, and where certain leaders and certain members of the community have all the power consistently, while others are oppressed and not taken care of, basically. So Parashat Bechukotai promises that if we will walk in the Lord's statute, which are hukot and commandments and mitzvot, and perform them, then we will be enjoying blessings and dwell securely in the promised land. Moreover, the Lord himself will make his dwelling with us and will walk amongst us as our God. The Torah is fulfilled with various imperatives of one kind or another. The term mitzvot is a general term used to refer to any commandment given by God. Mitzvot can be further divided into subcategories of hukim mishpatim. Okay, now hukim, which was something that we saw, or hukah or hok, are statutes given without a reason. As such, they are sometimes called supra-rational decrees. The classical example is the hok regarding the red heifer, which the legend has it defies even the wisdom of King Solomon. Other examples include dietary laws or the laws concerning family purity. These laws can seem irrational to human reason. The mishpatim are laws given for clearly specified reason. Example will be the commandment to give charity or prohibition against theft and murder. These mitzvot are inherently rational and appeal to the need for ethical unity and civil and moral life within the community. Okay, so like I said, this week's Torah portion starts in Leviticus chapter 26, all right, and it says the following: Im bechukotai telechu wa et mitzvotah tishmeru wa ashitem otam. And in English, it says the following: if you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments so as to carry them out, then I shall give you rain in their season, so that the land will yield its produce and the trees of the field will bear their fruit. Indeed, your threshing will last for you until grape gathering, and grape gatherings will last until sowing time. And you will thus eat your food to the full and live securely in your land. I shall also grant peace in the land, so that you may lie down with no one making you tremble. I shall also eliminate harmful beasts from the land, and now no sword will pass through your hand, Lord, your land. But you will chase your enemies, and they will fall before you by the sword. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will chase 1,000, and your enemies will fall before you by the sword. So I will turn toward you and make you fruitful and multiply you, and I will confirm my covenant with you. You will eat the old supply and clear out the old because of the new. Moreover, I will make my dwelling among you, and my soul will not reject you. I will also walk among you and be your God, and you shall be my people. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, so that you would not be their slave. And I broke the bars of your yoke and made you walk erect. So here Adonai is opening with a very rational and a very positive way to close out everything that he has told us in the previous verses, right? He's saying, if you follow my commands and my statutes and what I declare for eternity that is wholly pure, then if you obey that, then I will be with you and I will bless you. And when you go into the land, especially to Israel in this moment in time, he starts depicting everything and categorizing everything that they will need, which is for the rain, for the land to produce, for them to be protected, and he will provide for us the way that he has designed for us, so that we can be fruitful and multiply, just like he said in the beginning. The idea is to bring the Garden of Eden back and to continue and fulfill the purpose that he has designed. And so he wanted to use Israel as that vehicle to manifest that. And so here in Leviticus is the most pure representation of that, right? Obviously, Deuteronomy is something that is a re-establishing and a redirect of the same things that we're listening to, but with extra decrees, because Israel has stumbled in the future already, right? As we will know. And so, but right now, in the purest form, God is saying, I will be amongst you. I will live amongst the people as long as you obey me, because you will maintain a holy, sacred place for me to dwell in. Okay? Now, Jacob Milgram, in his commentary, he categorizes this section blessings, curses, and the recall of the covenant. He starts dividing, obviously, from verses 1 to 2, verses 3 to 39, which he puts it as blessings and curses. He says the number and length of curses generally exceed those of blessings in the law codes. He cites Rambam's sharp observation deserves to be mentioned. The empty-headed who remarked in the puzzlement that the curses are more numerous than the blessings have not told the truth. The blessings are stated as generalizations, whereas the curses are stated in detail in order to frighten the hearers. The first set of curses is marked by the measure of measure principle. I, in turn, will do this to you. Then the following sets utilizes a refrain sevenfold for your sins. In the crescendo intensity, there are clear echoes of the blessings and curses in covenant and commandments. Become there your God, brought you out of the land of Egypt. Lo, I shall give. Okay, now, he breaks this down. The blessings, obedience is rewarded. And then he says that there is 5, right? The first is blessing, which is plenty, which encompasses economic security, as followed by political security. The former is worthless without the latter. That's the second. The fourth blessing, abundant life and fulfillment of the covenant. The fifth blessing, God's presence in Israel. My presence, the usual translation is Mishkani, my tabernacle, cannot be correct. To be sure, this is the meaning elsewhere, but not here. And has here transformed the tabernacle into an expression connoting the divine presence. My Manifestly, Ezekiel, the earliest interpreter of this verse, understood it this way. The clear implication is that Yahweh, or Jehovah, is not confined to a sanctuary, but is present everywhere in the land. Perhaps this theology betrays the influence of the 8th century prophets, who also posit that Jehovah is dissociated from any sanctuary, and moreover, that his sanctuary is actually located in the heavens. However, the theology of the purity school also postulates that Jehovah is to be sought in the sanctuary. He was at any time capable of living it. Now, I want to focus on these two, and then we will conclude. It says, I will walk about in your midst. God will walk with his people as he walked with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. That is God's blessings can bring a return to the paradise conditions. I, Jehovah, am your God. This self-declaration formula of the Ten Commandments is addressed to the people of Israel. It is not a blessing in itself. It is a deity's assurance that the blessings will take place if Israel deserves them. A fitting closure to the blessings closing or section. Who freed you from the land of Egypt. This is a continuation of the Ten Commandments self-declaration. There, however, its purpose is to claim God's ownership of Israel. Here, it assures Israel that the one who performed the miracles in Exodus, and the Exodus from Egypt, is therefore capable of performing all and enumerate blessings. And he reminds them, I broke the bars of the yoke. This clause is repeated in Ezekiel 34:27. The ancient yoke was a pole of wood resting horizontally on the neck of the animal, or on the necks of a pair of animals. The bars consisted of pieces of wood passing perpendicularly through the yoke and fixed on each side of the neck by thongs. Resting on the hump of the animal, the yoke appears to hold the animal down. Israel is here pictured as a beast of burden. Therefore, when the yoke is removed, Israel can stand up right. And so he goes into dividing the curses in the same manner, which is 5 categories of blessings, 5 categories of curses. And so he will continue in that pattern. We won't get into all of it, but the idea is the following, right? Is Israel is invited into the land. Israel is given the opportunity to go into the land, purify it by removing the people that are there worshiping other gods, and destroying their families, offering them to their gods, and committing pagan actions that desecrate God's creation. And Israel is able to remove that, establish themselves, and by establishing themselves, it means that they will be following God's decrees and statutes, right? And commandments. And as they do that, they will not only purify the land, but God can not only bring fruit, protect them, guide them, that will bring a testimony to other nations. And at the same time, he will mourn and abide in their midst. That is something that no other nation has. The ability to have the true creator fulfill rain, crops, security, all those things that are going to be manifested in this promise of the curses and the blessings is God's promotion, telling Israel, if you do these things, I will manifest myself amongst you consistently for eternity. And if I do that, all the nations will see that I am with you, and they will want to be part of this. And you are going to open those doors as long as they obey my decrees and statutes, because you also were slaves. So you have to be able to not only apply this to yourself and embrace it, but also give it to those that are seeking it. Okay? Now, we're going to close with Matthew, the Brit Hadashah portion. We're not going to read the half Torah. That is your homework. But the Brit Hadashah is Yeshua, Jesus. It gives a parable, right, of the marriage feast. Yeshua said, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding feast for his son. And he sent out his slaves to call those who had been invited to the wedding feast, and they were unwilling to come. Again, he sent out other slaves, saying, tell those who have been invited, behold, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fattened livestock are all butchered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding feast. But they paid no attention and went their way, one to his own farm and another to his business. And the rest seized his slaves and mistreated them and killed them. But the king was enraged, and he sent his armies and destroyed those murderers and set their cities on fire. Then he said to his slaves, the wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Go therefore to the main highways, and as many as you find there invite to the wedding feast. Those slaves went out into the streets and gathered together all they found, both evil and good. And the wedding hall was filled with dinner guests. But when the king came in to look over the dinner guests, he saw a man there who was not dressed in the wedding clothes. And he said to him, friend, how did you come here without wedding clothes? And the man was speechless. Then the king said to the servants, bind him hand and foot and throw him into the outer darkness. In the place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. And this is Yeshua addressing the situation that is happening in his time, where leaders are rejecting those that are coming, but he is giving a parable that in a way describes Israel's condition throughout their generations, in where now they have been invited, right? This Torah portion in the book of Leviticus, and the book of Bamidbar, and the book of Deuteronomy, all of these books are an explanation of how Israel was invited to this wedding. And they were the wedding guests. And they rejected that invitation. And so God eventually exiles them, right? He says he sent his armies and gets him out of the land. And now in this process of God rejecting Israel because of their disobedience, through Yeshua, he invites not only those that were invited, but he says, invite anybody and anybody that you see. And those people responded to that call to the wedding feast. And so the idea of the parable is saying that you have an opportunity to come to the wedding, and you have an opportunity to accept the invitation that God is giving. Israel is given an invitation in this book of Leviticus saying, if you obey my statutes and my commands and my decrees, I will be with you. The same invitation that Yeshua gives. He says, through me you will have my Father, and I'll give you this invitation. And if you accept me as your Savior, and you accept my Father's statutes and commandments, he'll be with you the same way he's been with me. It takes loyalty, and it takes commitment and obedience to stay pure and holy for his Father. And in that way, we honor Yeshua's decision to represent us in his Father's behalf. Leviticus was very important. Purity, holiness, loyalty, consecration to his Father is what we're seeking, so that we're able to honor him and honor his word. And as long as we do that, we honor his Son, and he will be amongst us in our midst. So let's be obedient, let's be consistent, obey his commandments, obey his statutes, and we will find his peace, his protection, his guidance, above all, his blessings. Our fruits will let everybody know who our faith lies on. So let's honor him and let's represent him. So have a great week. Shavua Tov and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.